Thank you for coming. This is going to be a pretty interesting conversation. I'm Todd Peters. I'm the president of ArcSoft North America. A company you probably haven't really heard of, so I want to give you a little quick idea about my background. I started out on the agency side, and I sort of grew up on the agency side working on brands like Saturn for Halrani and Partners. I moved to the client side, where I most recently was Chief Marketing Officer for Windows Phones at Microsoft. I left Microsoft to go to a privately held company, which is called ArcSoft. ArcSoft is probably one of the best, least known technology companies. We're privately held. We're in Silicon Valley. And we have been really the architect of imaging technologies like red eye removal, HDR, low light video, image stabilization, and a host of other technologies that you probably use on a daily basis. It's a pretty interesting time, and the conversation that we're going to have is this intersection of where imaging technology is going and marketing. And I love it. I think it couldn't be a more exciting time. I've been through 2 or 3 technological waves in the Valley. I've seen the hubris. In this case, all the requirements, the various requirements are coming together to have a pretty profound impact, not just on the way we do things, but how we connect with people as well. ArcSoft, we ship in 1 billion Android phones. We're cross-platform. We make a lot of technologies that you probably use, but we also have some advanced sciences in imaging and gesture and video technologies, and I'll give you a little bit of flavor of that. We are in 3 of the 4 top point-and-shoot cameras, and we partner with the best OEMs in the world. We're found in smartphones like the Samsung Galaxy, and where we started on the point-and-shoot digital cameras, we had a very resource-constrained environment. The processor is only a very weak processor, so your algorithms and your technology you had in there had to be very, very efficient. So we learned how to work in a resource-constrained environment. When you moved up to a smartphone and you had something like a Snapdragon quad-core processor, you had amazing headroom to add all kinds of new features that are really relevant and exciting to use. So what is the imaging revolution, and why do we get pretty excited about it? It's really been this confluence of factors, and I started working on smartphones, and what we saw was this rapid adoption of powerful phones that have the same processing power and graphical computational power as the original Xbox. We had a high demand for it from consumer markets. We had ubiquitous high-speed data networks, and we were bringing down the cost. So what we have seen in the last 5 years is this absolute magnificent proliferation of mobility, and mobility in its largest sense. And in one way, you think about what have we done with all that technology? We've taken selfies. I've studied this pretty carefully, and it really boggles my mind how much we love to take pictures of ourselves. The type of technology and applications we're going to show you really can change things at a very high level in a societal way. And so far, we've used it to take pictures of ourselves. And that's okay. We understand that. But what we really are focusing on is, it's an interesting thing. I don't know if there's many copywriters in the room, and just so they don't throw anything at me. We're really focused on the impact that visual and a visual science can have on the way people connect to brands. So just starting with the mere fact that the brain processes visual images at 60,000 times faster than text-based causes you to wonder, why did we spend so much time on text? Now, this goes all the way back. Make the logo bigger? They're actually right. You should have made the logo bigger. And I fought against that quite a bit because I worked for an agency that was very, very focused on writing. The way things are changing and the advent of the Internet of Things, they're forecasting that by 2020, there'll be 50 billion connected devices in our world. The question that we're asking at ArcSoft, and this is not here, we're not promoting ArcSoft, but the question we're asking is how many of those things, connected things, are going to have lenses? We believe that a high percentage of those things will have lenses, and that lenses are going to work in ways that we never expected them to in the past. Now, there's some negative aspects of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's, like any new technology, there's so many positive and beneficial aspects of it that we really try and focus our energies on that. When we talk about intelligent imaging, right now we're sort of baseline. The thing that amazes me, you're talking about selfies. I look at profile pictures on LinkedIn. We have over 100 million profile pictures in the US, and that's not including eHarmony and all the dating sites, and the esteem and the quality of the images are very low. Why would you be looking for a job or looking for a partner or a spouse or whatever, promoting yourself, and you take a really crappy picture of yourself? That makes no sense to me. That's not actually your fault. I've seen all the pictures on there. I go through and look at it. It's the technology on your device. Your device needs to be way more sophisticated. And what's happened is, because of the ubiquity of these devices in your pockets, particularly millennials, how careful you are and how much you think about your image has gone down. So you take it out, you shoot a bunch, and you post it, and no one's really thinking about the quality of those pixels. So how good are those pixels arranged? What are they doing? How are they working together? Why would you ever have an out-of-focus picture? Why would you ever have an image that has really poor resolution or is too dark or someone's not smiling? These are all things that can be eradicated, and we're in the process of doing that. And that's a baseline, is just improving the quality of the images, but that's just really beginning to scratch the surface. You remember some of these icons, and a lot of you probably do remember these icons. They really stuck with you, and they probably still stick with you today. It's a little bit of a gratuitous nod. I did work at Staples, so we threw in an easy button for fun. But these images are locked in your brain, and they're powerful. And they elicit emotions that probably text can't quite retain as much or elicit as much as the proper image. And what you've seen now with digital marketing and this evolution in digital marketing, they're visually based. And you look at the success of a Pinterest and how fast, it was the fastest growing social network. The reason is it's visually based. And we respond to images more than we respond to text. The same is true with a Vine. And you look at the way Vine has been used. 5 per second are posted every day. And they're being used by established brands like Good Morning America is using Vine to reach younger audiences. You might not be able to tell, but I'm actually a shoe guy. And Coach is one of my favorite brands. Coach has done a great job, Coach from Above. And what Coach has done with Instagram and with Twitter and with Vine, they let their brand loose. They let it run loose. You used to never let anyone create anything for your brand but yourself or your marketing team or your agency. That's wrong-headed thinking. You got to put it out there, and you got to let your users run with it and create their own consumer. And what Coach has done is has a website. You go to it, you look at it, and they post up there, and they've created a community around Coach from Above, which has been a very, very effective viral campaign. They're not the only ones that are getting it. Google Plus is released at Google I/O. They're improving how to edit images in the cloud. So not just on the device where we're going to start, but where are we going to take it is in the cloud, and how can we improve the images that are already up there. I was talking to the CTO of Dropbox. They're posting 1 billion images a week. Now, what we see that is not a problem. We see that as information. And everyone's running around. We're very excited about big data. To me, pixels is big data. And we're going to learn how to extract that information from those pixels that can tell you a world about what your consumer is thinking about, what they're interested in, what they're wearing, what they're eating, what they're doing, what they care about. And you can do it in a non-intrusive, non-invasive way that will allow you to connect with users unlike we've ever been able to do before in marketing. I'll play a little clip for you here.
A road diverges in the desert.
Sorry.
Lexus. The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. Make sure you are
You can move the old-fashioned John Anderton. 21 styles provides gourmet cuisine. John Anderton. You could use a Guinness right about now. Stressed out, John Anderton.
This week on it all, Harrison. Get away, John Anderton. Forget your troubles.
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Mr. Yakamoto.
Hey, Miss Bell. did you come back for another pair of those chamois lace-ups?
So it depends on your point of view. I mean, you could see that as a little creepy, or you could see that as pretty interesting. The reason, that movie only came out in 22, 23, and it blew people's mind. But that technology is available today. So when we talk about the Internet of Things and where we're going, it's not the lens that's facing away from you, it's the lens that's facing you. Now that presents a lot of issues, and we'll talk a little about it, but it also presents a lot of opportunity. This feels a little bit creepy, Minority Report, but on the other hand, if your retail environment recognizes you or something about you, that you like a curated shopping experience, or you like discount, or you like clearance, or you like to be left alone, all this information can quickly animate and reconfigure the environment that you're in to optimize the sale. Now, this felt so sci-fi when this came out, it sort of freaked people out, but the reality is we're moving in this direction, that we begin to understand, because the lenses understand more about you, and therefore the marketers can understand more about you, process this data very quickly, and provide with some analytics and predictive information about what might be of interest to you. There's a couple other baseline technologies, and we'll talk a little bit about the implications for the future. They may not seem relevant. Some of these may be, had been explored a little bit, but there's a lot of talk about facial recognition, as you saw in that clip. And you've seen that we've tried facial recognition, or we're trying it. It's becoming more and more sophisticated. Facial recognition used to be on your digital camera. It was just a yellow box that recognized a face. That was really primitive. We've been writing very, very sophisticated algorithms that begin to understand the face in a much deeper and richer way, so that the lens can begin to take a look at it, measure it, code it, decode it, and bring back some important information for you. This next video, and by the way, we're not, we're a technology lab, so I'm sure you'll see much slicker sort of finished videos. Our stuff's pretty raw because we basically build them in a lab. But I want to give you a little flavor of an application that we've wrote. This application is called Perfect 365. We did it sort of as a trial. We really worked directly with the semiconductor manufacturers and the OEMs. We brought this to market about 7 months ago, and we're at 10 million downloads. It's the fastest growing imaging application in all three marketplaces today. And what I think it speaks to is the interest in facial recognition and some of the consumer types of applications it can bring to people's lives.
ArcSoft was an early innovator in face detection technologies, making them available on some of the very first camera phones. In 2011, ArcSoft introduced Perfect 365, a free digital makeover app, putting sophisticated face technology algorithms to use in a fun and clever package perfectly suited to today's era of selfies and social photo sharing. Available today in all app stores, Perfect 365 lets you upload a photo from your library or use the camera on your device to take a new photo. Then using the cloud-driven facial recognition technology, the app will detect your face and map it for accuracy, identifying 24 key points: your eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. Now, the fun can really start. The advanced photo editing engine lets you apply makeup with very natural results and lets you try different looks. Modifications are easy. You can enhance your skin, erase blemishes, or brighten the whites of your eyes. When you're satisfied with your new image, you can easily share your results with friends through social media.
So that's Perfect 365, just a really simple consumer application that could become an e-commerce platform. We didn't intend it, but we're getting calls from Maybelline, Oliver Peoples, fashion houses. And where this is going to go is it's not just going to be your face, it's going to be your body, and it's not an avatar, it's your actual configuration, because the engine can recognize yourself. Now, that becomes a lot of information for someone else to have, but there are privacy rules, which we'll talk about in a minute. Another area that we're really excited about is gesture technology. And you remember when Kinect came out, it sort of blew everyone's mind, but it was also pretty primitive at the time. The ability for us to control machines with facial expressions seems also sort of sci-fi, but it also has real practical benefits. We're working with a hospital that's using gesture technology in the operating room so surgeons can turn pages with their retinas. So they can look at multiple screens, their hands are obviously busy, they can flip pages. If you think about like consumer applications where you have a smart TV that is paying close attention to the viewer, if the viewer turns away, the TV can pause. If the viewer falls asleep, the show and the programming can pause. There's applications that we're working with in automotive that we can tell if a driver is distracted by the lens that's facing the driver. And if the driver is looking around, I have a 16-year-old driver, she's never looking at the road, terrifies me. It can send off an alert. It can warn you that you're doing it. Long-haul truckers still have a problem with them falling asleep with their heads coming down, and you see the head motion. A very simple, very inexpensive, and it's not just the lens, it's the software that's running on top of the lens, and then the ability to put it into the cloud, do some coding, decoding, analyze it, and get it back into real time and what we can do with that type of information. This one obviously has a lot of implications for security, but also for marketing as well.
We all know that taking great video with a smartphone after the sun goes down, or even at a candlelight dinner, is no easy feat. But mobile devices enabled with Nighthawk will be able to capture video with much improved details, colors, and clarity, even in a low light condition. Let's take a look. Okay, here is a dim scene. Nanobugs aren't exactly the cutest thing in the world, but they serve their purpose in this demo. Imagine if these nanobugs were people in a room. The details would be pretty hard to make out. You'd probably be disappointed at the shot you got, because it really didn't capture the moment. We're using a typical Android-based smartphone here, and you can't see a whole lot. Now, in a side-by-side comparison, here's another Android-based smartphone with Nighthawk video enabled. Take a look at the top of the scene. There's so much more detail you can see here in the ISO resolution test chart. You can even read the numbers on the scale. Check out the colors. They're radiant, bright. The one on the left, you can barely make out the color panel, but look on the right. The yellows, reds, and blues are vibrant. Now, observe the clarity differences. The image on the left is grainy, particularly over the orange base, but look at the Nighthawk image on the right. It's bright and clean with much less noise. And one last thing, blur. Blur is dramatically reduced. Check out the bugs going by in the Nighthawk image. They're much clearer. So how does this intelligent imaging work? Nighthawk video improves video quality through the use of real-time image merging. This results in increased brightness and dynamic range, and reduced noise, all without compromising details. Devices that integrate Nighthawk's patented image capture and post-processing algorithms will give consumers the ability to capture life in motion under everyday low-light conditions.
So that's Nighthawk. So these are three types of baseline technologies. And it's really, we create them and we build them, but what marketers do with them and understand them is wide open. There's going to be a whole host of new, really highly disruptive business applications and consumer impact in the way that society interacts with each other and with learning, education, and medicine. The interesting thing is we can look a little bit and make some predictions. These predictions are not that far-fetched. It's fun to make predictions because you don't have to be around to explain why they didn't happen. But in this case, self-driving cars, huge opportunity. They're already on the road today. There's 12,000 people are killed in drunk driving accidents every year. There's no reason for that. With self-driving cars, they have lenses on board. They have 30 to 40 lenses. They're taking a host of information. It's going to the cloud. It's being processed. This type of thing by 2012 will allow children, babies born today, to never have a driver's license. It will also have an implication on texting and driving. As I mentioned, drinking and driving. Some of the other societal implications of this type of technology will be there won't be any traffic jams. I used to live in Boston. I live in Seattle. I lived in San Francisco. It's a nightmare. It doesn't need to be because it's created by the drivers. It's not created by the technology. So for the ability to manage what lane you're in and what time you should be in that lane and manage your road raging because you're not driving is going to have a big impact, not just on traffic, but also emissions, because the onboard controller will do a much better job at regulating how much acceleration, when you accelerate and how much you accelerate. Prediction number 2, this is on its way, and I would say this is beyond the NBA. This is on its way. Every coach by 2020 on a professional sports team will have a PhD in data analytics. Now, why do I say that? I think the best indication of that is a company called SportsView. Right now, every single NBA team has 6 cameras, and they're filming every single game. And what they're doing is they're using massive data analytics to understand what a team is likely to do. And I don't just mean she typically goes to the paint or a three-pointer. I'm talking about very, very precise, which side, speed, velocity, spacing of players, that it will take at least initially till they have these dashboards. They can really have a much deeper understanding of what's happening on the court. It will change the way that we think about data because of the visualization of that data. As I said, the idea that each one of these dumb pixels that we're putting up right now, that we're randomly throwing up selfies, this is where it's going. This is the type of implication that it could have. And the last one that's pretty cool, we've all heard about the smart home. I've heard about it coming for many years. My house is pretty new and it's not that smart. So I think we've promised people a lot in the way of smart homes, but the reason is, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons we didn't have a flexible platform like Android. The Internet of Connected Things was not upon us, and the people that were trying to build it were not working together. They weren't building a ubiquitous technology platform in the home. But imagine that when they walk up, that the camera does recognize you. The sensors in your home do recognize you. And they do recognize that you want your sports center on or music on. You are like the temperature at 78 degrees. You like the blinds. So the house begins to animate because you've been recognized. Not a 40-year-old male, because it'll lock down. The opposite will happen. But it might recognize my wife, and she might want things set differently. As you walk through the house, the visualization and visual data that it captures can continue to inform what you're doing. You might have a benefit or some sort of social engagement that night. Your mirror won't be an avatar of you. It will be you with different outfits on and making suggestions. Your ability for gestures to manipulate information around the home and all the screens, either with your hands or with your eye movements or even verbally, will happen in the next 5 years. So the advent of sort of the opportunity, I think, around the marketing is how, and we'll talk a little bit more about the opportunity, but now that we see this level of change from technology, where are the right intersections for marketing and get the messages across in the right way that consumers will react to it? A lot of this stuff is pretty scary. I spent a little bit of time, I spoke yesterday at Mobilize in San Francisco, and this was a real interesting area. It freaks people out. I mean, the fact that we're going to be on cameras 24/7 is sort of the ultimate Big Brother scenario. And what we're proposing, we're a pretty small company, but we're proposing a consortium that develops new rules. Certainly your smart home, you can turn it off. Your phone, anything that you control, your car, you should have opt-out options. When you're in a mall, you should know that this mall is wired or not wired. There's a host of implications that it brings to people. And I think if we go about it the right way, I went back and I was reading about each wave in technology over the last 100 years, scared people, really scared people. The railroad terrified people. There was all sorts of letters written about how dangerous the railroad and how wrong it was. And you can take that and look at every technological wave. We're not excusing this. We think this is going to be very hard work. But we think it's really important work, and some of the benefits that we've already shared with you and the implications that we can have on society, we think greatly outweigh, if this is done correctly, the inherent risk to shut it all down. So where are we going? We've talked about a couple of different opportunities. I think as you look and understand the world, that there's two lenses. One's going to be outbound, one's going to be inbound. Each one's going to capture pixels. Each one is going to have information in those pixels. And what you do with it gives you a great opportunity to influence your purchase decision or your branding or whatever it is that your marketing objective might be in a rich and dynamic way that hasn't been done before. I actually think we're at a point, and we're getting near a point, where instead of marketers and being invasive and still serving up the wrong ad at the wrong time and doing it in a way that actually repels people to your brand, I think with some of this technology and the type of applications that will be created from it, you're actually going to be able to serve up the right message at the right time to the exact right person, right when they want it, and create a tighter connection with your user than you will in any other medium, any time that's preceded it. So finally, as we think about these technologies, we're going to reach for unprecedented consumer engagement. And there's a lot of talk about engagement and what it means. We still bounce messages off of people that is becoming more and more noise. There's a proliferation of it. Everyone's trying to reach in and understand how do we make that connection with people that is deep and long-lasting. We believe that through the data created through visual technologies, we're going to have the best opportunity of doing that and reaching people, as I said, in an emotive way and a compelling way that will be highly trackable with the data and the reactions that they have to it and the type of behaviors that you want to elicit from your target audiences. So my call to action, I've been in marketing for too long, and one of my observations has been that we're very slow as marketers with new technologies. I remember internet marketing was being very slow. I was at Intel at the time. We were debating including it in the Intel Inside program. There was a lot of debate that why? No one's going to use internet advertising. And this was, in the mid-90s. No one would ever use it. My encouragement as marketers is to be bold and innovative. I was a CMO. I'm not anymore. But what I've learned in the new era of marketing is there's still some fundamentals that count, and you need to know which ones to throw out. But clinging to a lot of the vestiges of traditional Procter & Gamble marketing aren't going to work anymore. One that we already mentioned is give your consumer all the power. Give them your brand. Give them a reason and a way and an opportunity to enjoy your brand in ways that you've never done before. You don't have to throw out the whole book. I think consistency and continuity, having a brand voice, being thoughtful and insightful, audience segmentation. I think there's a whole host of goodness that is still relevant. And where I work in the Valley, and when I talk to a lot of younger marketers, they've already thrown out the book, but they didn't know the book. It's actually helpful if you do have the technology piece down, but you also have some of the fundamentals of marketing. So you're really looking for that hybrid of some of the traditional marketing practices and protocols and layering on top of it this extension. And you'll be challenged. And hopefully a lot of you are the type that will be disruptive and will go push marketers. I love doing that. That was part of my fun in my role, was to shake up what I thought was status quo, because status quo is not going to cut it. It's not going to build the next great brand. It's not going to be able to reach people in a new way. I think understanding how the needs and behaviors of our consumers are evolving around technology will give us a much greater platform in doing so. And then lastly, if I haven't made this clear, it's a visual world, and we haven't really optimized for a visual world. And the millennials are more visual than anybody. Just take a look at a few of their texts. I mean, whenever I have this conversation, someone raised their hand and said, what about Twitter? Well, what about Twitter with an image attached to it? It gets 6 times the reach. Twitter is desperately encouraging people to add images to their tweets. Phenomena like Snapchat, I can't really speak to the real reason Snapchat has been such a phenomenal success, but again, it gives you an indication that this audience, younger audiences, is thinking in visual ways, and we have presented much of our information to them in a text-based world. That has to change. It's in the process of changing, and if we don't change it, they're going to change it for us. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to be innovative, to be in front of it, and to understand that the visualization of our world is going to present some fantastic disruptive opportunities going forward. So with that, I'll open it up for some questions. Yes? Our company? Our company is intelligent imaging. So we work in all these categories, and we have a very sophisticated lab, and we work at the chipset level. The application that I showed you, Perfect 365, is really not our core business. So we try and provide the technologies that automotive and medicine and education and retail will use. But right now, we primarily also in devices. Yes? I think in brand experience is very broad. So I might ask you to get a little bit more specific, but what I could see is the biometric feedback from the individual to the brand and understanding it. If you understood my emotions, if you understood that I'm crying, it's not a really good time to engage me with something humorous. You understood I'm laughing, then maybe the endorphins are heightened. You may be able to provide me more and continue down that path. You could imagine with some of these technologies that programming would evolve based on facial expressions. As we understand, to me, it's getting your brand experience much closer, not massive, but to the individual and how they're feeling and what they're thinking. And I think that's a significant promise. And some brands are closer than others, but we still commoditize the experience. We still try and go broad. And think about, again, the annals of marketing. We always wanted brand consistency, and every brand, it was the same in every store, and it was the same for every person. And wherever you saw this mark, that's what it meant. I think with these types of technologies, it's customized and personalized for the individual that you're interacting with. And it'll be up to all of you to figure out how to actually do that. We'll make some of the underlying technologies and the lenses and the software and the big data analytics, but the creativity of how to use that information to build a closer connection with your user, and brand loyalty is going to be up to you all. Yeah. So I just touching on that really quick. I mean, ultimately, we need to get to transaction. I think we've tried to abbreviate the relationship to transaction, and I still believe that if you're respectful of your audience, and again, it comes back to some of the technological applications that we've shown, you've invited not just a sale, but the next sale and the next sale and the next sale. We don't sell anything on Perfect 365. We don't sell the app. 10 million people, 11 million people are using it. We're doing 1 million face scans a day because we want to delight them and engage them and entertain them. So I think that marketers and the interesting thing about the CMO role, and I was a CMO, and I always wanted the P&L because people did not understand that this engagement is valuable. And we're so analytically driven, and it's got to be immediate, but the emotional connection that brands create will propel and separate the differentiation that will be profitable for a much longer period of time than the quarter that's closing in 3 days that you have to rationalize. Other questions? Yeah, no, it's really fair, and I'm not a privacy expert. I haven't. Well, I think what I would hope they would do is they'd have a strong representation of technologists, consumer advocates. I'm probably not going to say politicians, but maybe politicians. I don't know what would get done. And I think there has to be a strong voice of the consumer in there. And what I would imagine, like any new tool, that we have some operational beliefs that we can all agree on. We've done this in complicated areas. Now, we didn't get the internet perfect, but there's still a lot of things that go on the internet that are horrific. But we've managed for a fair degree of that, And I don't think we'll get it perfect with privacy, but I think we'll get much, much better. The problem is we are not organized to address it right now. And I'm advocating and I'm speaking at a number of different places and trying to stir it up because the problem is technology is running away. I mean, you're on camera 30, 40, 50 times since you left your house this morning. You may not want to be, right? Your face shouldn't be recognized. Who's watching you? Those are very real problems that technologies enable, but yet we don't have really a new set of rules. And I think soon we will have a new set of rules. Certainly with technologies that you control with imaging, as I said, you can opt in and opt out. That's the easiest way to do. Turn it off at your home. You have guests coming over that really don't want their face recognized or your video. Don't store anything. Of the million faces we scan, we don't keep any of them. None. They're deleted immediately. There's no backup. So I think that there's behaviors like that. It's in its early days, and I think you'll see growing. It concerns me how hard it will be as we take these disparate industries and we try and to agree. But my vision would be take the companies that have the most influence and work with consumer advocates and privacy advocacies and develop a new set of rules. That's as much as I got on that. I'm not an expert, nor should I go much further on that topic, other than tell you that it worries me too, and we make some of the technology.